Welcome again, everyone. Welcome. Good evening, or good afternoon, or good day. This is the Tuesday tune-in. So as usual, we'll have a program of some guided meditation, and then after about half an hour, we'll shift to Dhamma talk, and then some time for Q&A at the end. And before I get started with the meditation today, I just want to make one announcement, which is that there will be no public programs at the Vihara next week. So because of the Thanksgiving holiday, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break. And so there won't be any Tuesday night or Wednesday morning or Thursday morning or Thursday night teachings next week. But we will be back on to the regular schedule again the first part of December. Great. So for now, let's go ahead then and settle into a meditation posture. Sensing the natural stability of the body on your seat. Allowing the belly to relax and soften. And coming into an upright posture. Feeling the lightness of the body lifting up from that steady base. And resting the eyes. Now turning the attention to the hands. Just becoming aware of the sensation of touch in the hands. Just staying curious about that sensation of touch as it's changing moment to moment. Bringing the attention to the sensations of touch in the hands. Aware that there is some sensation in each moment. And as you continue to attend to the sensations of touch in the hands, also noticing the feeling tones of those sensations. Just observing whether they are pleasant or sort of neutral or unpleasant. No need to change or explain the feeling tones, just observing how it is in each moment. Sensation of touch. Staying curious about the feeling tones of touch in the hands. Just resting the mind there. And now, having observed the feeling tones in the mind, shifting to observe the mind as a whole, the whole cognitive experience. Just looking for any sense of grasping, of pulling things toward you, craving. So just observing the qualities of the mind and noting anytime you see that sense of pulling or wanting. Attending to the qualities of the mind, particularly observing that quality of wanting or grasping, pulling experience toward you. And in these last few minutes of the meditation, one more shift in perspective, just noticing the energy of the mind. Is the energy strong? Is it bright? Is it busy? Or is the energy low, dull, sluggish? Maybe balanced in between? How is it? The energy of the mind. Beautiful. That's our meditation practice for this evening. And that was a very simplified version of the Satipatthana, the four foundations of mindfulness. And I hope to touch on that again in just a moment in the Dhamma talk. But for now, please make whatever adjustments you need to as we shift gears. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. This evening, I would like to talk a bit about patience. And if you're thinking, oh no, a talk about patience, then this talk is especially for you. That would have been me in times past. I might still. But I want to talk about patience. And some of you know that in the parenting discussion group that my friend Yang Kui Chuang and I are co-leading, we are going through the paramis, the 6 paramis. And parami is a word that means the perfection or the highest, the pinnacle, the best. And these are 6 qualities that are really, you could say, key ingredients for the practice. They're not the same as other frameworks. I usually refer to them as frameworks or sort of lists, systems, groupings that were given in the suttas. They're actually from the commentaries. But nonetheless, they can be helpful. And patience is the 3rd one. So it's giving ethics, patience, energy, meditation, and wisdom. And so when I think about patience, I suppose that it's important to start by thinking about what is not patience. What is the opposite, the other side of the coin, so to speak? And generally in Buddhism, it would be understood to be anger. Anger would be the quality on the other side of the color wheel, so to speak. The Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, wrote a book a while back about working with anger in order to develop patience. And so something about frustration, feeling thwarted, the anger, the annoyance that comes out of that, and or anxiety, fear, some kind of sense of pressure, concern. that doesn't allow you to be accepting of the moment, the timing of the moment, or the way that the moment is arising. So there's some sense of impatience. So I don't want to go too far down the route of speaking about anger or about anxiety, because I want to speak more about the way that we can foster patience. And to do that, what came to mind, so I was thinking about this, preparing for this, was a sutta called the Setaka Sutta. Many of you will be familiar with it. The Setaka Sutta is a sutta from the linked discourses, number 47.19, for anybody who's going to look it up. And it's specifically chapter 47 of the linked discourses is about the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And so this sutta relates to that, relates to mindfulness and the way that mindfulness and patience can be mutual supports for each other. So that's the aspect that I want to talk about today. But the backstory of the sutta, the text, is that the Buddha begins by telling a story. And he tells a story about 2 folks who are performers, a man and a woman. And the man is the performer at the base, you could say, the base person, the foundation. And then he holds up a bamboo pole. And at the top of the bamboo pole is where the woman does her part of the performance. So she would climb up the pole and do something up there, some kind of, you can imagine some kind of very like gymnastic style of thing, or like, it brings to mind for me like Cirque du Soleil or something. Yeah. So the gentleman says to the woman, he says, okay, you take care of me and I will take care of you, and we will do our performance and receive our payment, our tips, or however it was that they received some sustenance from this, and we'll both finish and be safe and well. And she says to him, no, it's not like that at all. You watch out for you, and I watch out for me. And when we do that, then we will both be able to do our performance and be safe and well. And the Buddha says, yes, that she is giving the proper advice, that the practice, it begins with our establishing some sense of well-being here in our own hearts and minds. In fact, that's pivotal. That's kind of foundational, I would say, to being a practitioner, is to begin with this knowing that we will never fix the world out there. We will never find a world that will make us feel safe enough or well enough. That's not how it works. There will be wonderful things. There will be wellness. There will be supports. But to think that somehow we will ultimately fix it out there such that dukkha can be resolved, that the suffering or the unsatisfactoriness of our lives can be resolved, that feeling of fundamental dissatisfaction, that's not true. That's not going to happen. It has to happen in this body and mind. Which is also why nobody can do the practice for you, right? Or give you anything of value, really. Nor can you take anything of ultimate value from someone. We have it. We have the capacity to do it, and we need to, and we utilize that. We develop that discover that capacity. So the practice, the path begins here at home, here with looking after oneself. And so specifically, the Buddha says, thinking, quote, I will look after myself, you should cultivate satipatthana, the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And thinking, quote, I'll look after others, you should cultivate satipatthana, 4 foundations of mindfulness. So before I get into the specifics of the satipatthana, the mindfulness in general is said by the Buddha to be always useful, meaning that it is beneficial for us to develop it in ourselves. And when we're doing that, then our interactions with others are going to be different, are going to be ultimately more beneficial. And that is based in the meeting of what's here, what's present, and attending to that. And interestingly, this skill of attending to life, this skill of mindfulness, it really has a great deal to do, even without establishing concentration. It has to do with bringing into focus the actual qualities that are present, and rather than our interpretation of those qualities, right? Or some desire for them to be otherwise, or some history that we've had, right? And in relationship in particular, this is very important. So we have a relationship with a person, and if we've known them for some time, especially if we've known them for a very long time, we might be relating to our story about them, or our history about them, or our wants, wishes, desires for how they could be. This is particularly important for us to think about now at Thanksgiving, right? When many of us will be spending time with our families and folks that we've known all our lives, or some great portion of our lives, right? And bringing actual mindfulness to the present moment experience of that person is incredibly important. Incredibly important. Even if it's difficult, even if it seems to be reinforcing everything you've seen for the last 40 years, the mere fact of receptivity to the reality as it is means that you have a better chance of actually responding to reality as it is, of finding a skillful, wholesome way of meeting that thing. Because if you're not doing that, then you have no chance, right? There's no way to really begin to have a clear, wholesome, skillful encounter with some interpretation, some delusion about what that person is, right? And it can open up a door. It can open up a door to a little bit of a fresh look. So satipatthana, so 4 foundations of mindfulness. So beginning with mindfulness of the body. Mindfulness of the body. Aha, right. So what does this body look like? What does this body feel like? What is it that the body is telling us about the lived experience? right now. Mm. So if you think about impatience, for example, when impatience is happening, how do you know that? How do you feel that in your body? For me, it's gritting the teeth. If I notice that the teeth are tight, that is a sign that there's some impatience present. But everybody has a different way of knowing. Mm. And mindfulness of others' bodies. So it's mindfulness of the body internally and mindfulness of the body externally. Right? So aware also of what's going on in front of you, what's the observable experience of someone else's body. Mm. Again, being really careful about interpreting that, just the observation as best you can. And then mindfulness of the feeling tone, right? So when we did the meditation, we started out with the sensations in the hands. That's technically, that is one of the 6 sense bases, the sensation of touch. It's not actually well, anyway, I won't get too much into it, but 6 sense bases is part of the 4th foundation of mindfulness, not the 1st foundation of mindfulness. But just being in touch with the physicality of the hands was my simplified suggestion for this evening of beginning our meditation with a mindfulness of the body. And then there is the 2nd foundation of mindfulness, which is the feeling tones. So the feeling tones is this pleasant, unpleasant, or neither. And so again, the meditation tonight was about, yes, tuning in a little bit to what are the feeling tones when you feel the sensation of touch in the hands, what's happening there. Just getting a sense for being able to tune into that valence that the experience is having, that the experience has, because that's always there, but typically we slide over that. We don't really pay close attention to that. But that is a very good bridge between the bodily experience and the mental experience. So then that 3rd foundation of mindfulness is you could say, the sort of holistic qualities of the mind. So we looked at the first one, which is presence of greed, right? This wanting, this craving, pulling things toward you. Even in subtle amounts. It's not to make a big judgment about it or a negative out of it. It's again simply to begin to train the mind to be able to observe those processes, those tendencies. Notice how they are working. But generally, that 3rd foundation of observing the mind is again a sort of, you could say, looking at the cognitive experience as a whole, like your mind as a room, maybe a room as big as all things, as big as the entire cosmos, maybe a room like smaller than your closet. Depends on how it feels right in any particular moment. But we're looking at that one quality of the craving. And then the 4th foundation is said to be dhammas, mindfulness of dhammas. So mindfulness of dhammas means, you could say more specifically, qualities of the mind. And generally we think of them as like the qualities that lead away from clarity and awakening. Those would be the 5 hindrances, for example, and qualities that lead toward awakening and clarity of the mind. So that would be the 7 factors of awakening, for example. So specifically, what I called to mind, what I was pointing toward in the instruction this evening, was looking at energy. That's one of the 7 factors of awakening. How can we begin to observe the quality of energy in the mind? So I think some of us, very familiar with energy in the body, but actually, how do we notice energy in the mind as well? So these are the kinds of things that can help us to find clarity, to understand what's at work in our own bodies and minds. And when we've done that, then perhaps this quality of mindfulness, this receptivity of mindfulness, can be counter to the tendency of impatience, the tendency of wanting it to be some other way, pushing away the experience, not allowing time for the experience, not allowing acceptance of the experience. So the Buddha gets a little bit more specific in this sutta, and I really appreciate that. So he says specifically so now he shifts to a language of mutuality, right? So first he was saying that one needs to look after oneself. Then he talks about looking after others using that same practice, that same inward practice of satipatthana, but also, again, there's the external observation as best we can. But then he starts talking in a language of even more mutuality. And so he says, how do you look after others by looking after yourself? And I'm using Bhante Sujata's translation. It's pretty similar to Bhikkhu Bodhi's, I believe, but I have Bhante's here, Bhikkhu Bodhi's here as well. So one looks after others by looking after yourself by development, cultivation, and practice. Practice. Bahulikamena means a continuous practice, ongoing practice, consistent practice. So Asevanaya means this kind of development. Bhavana means cultivation, or means bringing it, literally means bringing it into being. Bringing it into being. I think it's very interesting because to me that has the sense of some intentionality, working with intentionality. And then bahulikamena. So bahulikamena is this Pali word that means that continuity by repetition. That's one way to sort of break it down. And then how does one look after oneself? By looking after others. How does one look after oneself? By looking after others. So now there's a slight shift, right? So now, okay, the focus is on looking after the others and knowing that also has a benefit for oneself. So this is a very, very important side of the practice. This is you could say the generous side, or the generous side, the side that looks externally to be beneficial and be supportive as much as possible. So how do you look after others in a way that benefits yourself? By patience, harmlessness, loving kindness, and empathy. So, patience. So we look after others by offering them our patience. Offering them the space of acceptance of what is in the moment. Of allowing a bit of time, or a bit of whatever room needs to happen there. And that is, how is that benefiting us? So we should look that the Buddha is trying to make this very clear that we also benefit. So how do I benefit by offering others patience? Well, I benefit by offering others patience because then I don't have that feeling of annoyance, of irritation, of frustration, of impatience, of anxiety, of whatever is that other thing filling my mind. Right? I also feel that spaciousness. So it's a benefit to me to be patient as well, in the same way that we talk about, as best we can, setting down anger. Setting down anger is a benefit for oneself, even before it benefits others. So the patience, or here, Bhante Sujato translates it as acceptance. Acceptance. Kahanti, Kahanti, Khanti, Kahanti is the Pali word. And so the next part being harmlessness. And this is really important, this aspect of taking care not to harm others, either through our impatience or through some other act. And then alongside that, the loving kindness, the metta, so this practice of offering a universal kindness, a kindness that is not earned, a kindness that is from our side, fulfilled. Again, a kindness that is based in a generosity of heart and mind, a presence of heart and mind. And that's why this last word is very, very important. So Bhante Sujato translates it as sympathy, and so does Bhikkhu Bodhi. But if you look at the word is anudayata. Anudayataya, actually, is the particular version, but anudayata. And that means sympathy specifically for others. So it's actually empathy. Talking about empathy, offering others empathy, our ability to somewhat try to understand their life, understand their body and mind, understand their feelings in the moment, their reasoning. This is really up for me right now. I have been watching the news about the women and men, people, lots of people, thousands of them who are protesting in Iran. Protesting for the right to forego wearing a headscarf, hijab. Peacefully protesting, not damaging property or harming other people, as far as I know. They've been identified, at least by the UN and the other folks that I have been reading, as peaceful protesters, and yet, for reasons that I find very, very difficult to accept, the Iranian parliament voted that they should receive the death penalty. Those people who are protesting against having to wear headscarves. And I wonder, where is the empathy in that form of ethics? Where is the empathy in that? way of understanding how to rule, how to be a society, how to be a human being. So this problem has been since the beginning of time for women, finding that there is a lack of empathy for women's experience at times, and that it shows up as various forms of oppression and control and violence, sanctioned or otherwise. So it's very up for me. But I guess my message to us today is that empathy is a very important human attribute. And when we harden our hearts toward other people and we lack that sense of being able to meet them where they are, even in the midst of their deep confusion and difficulty, then that is more pain for us. That is more suffering for us. So I am myself trying to meet this situation there and really understand how that happens and what we can do to have empathy for people who feel that strongly about their religious life. So patience, patient acceptance, while really being the voice, I hope, of empathy and kindness and harmlessness, so that we can sleep at night, so that we can have our hearts and minds be clear. And so that others can do the same. Thank you for listening.